Hi, and welcome back to the HE Naval podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long term health conditions in UK higher education. I'm Cath, and this week I am joined by Melissa. She is an award winning freelance journalist who focuses on disability rights and has published with so many publications, including Cosmopolitan UK, the Radio Times, Digital Spy, and Metro, among others. Melissa is also the founder of the Hands Off Our Handles campaign, which is, quote, an initiative focused on stopping people from grabbing wheelchair users and pushing them as well without consent. She's a law graduate by training and has previously been an associate lecturer. So we have a lot to discuss today. We're going to be getting through a lot. But I'm genuinely so excited to get stuck into this interview, and I really do think it's time we get started. Hello, Melissa. Welcome to the show.
I think for me that was an amazing introduction, by the way. Just like my whole life story there, great.
It was really hard because I didn't think I had you on any socials other than Hands Off Our Handles, so I felt like an investigative journalist. I was like, oh, what can I find out? So I'm glad it did justice.
Yeah, social media is not my area. I'm not a big fan of social media at all, so I kind of avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, that's very valid. To be fair, it was quite fun. I was like digging through old interviews and like Metro articles, and I was like, I learned things. It was fine. I enjoyed it for what it's worth. And now you have everything in one place.
I start cringe, but yeah, I'll just cringe here silently.
So obviously you said hello. I know a little bit about who you are. People may have seen your work from Hands Off Our Handles, but please could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in higher education?
So I'm Melissa, actor of Palsy, is wheelchair full time. I did A levels in England and then my degree, no masters. I was skipped to PhD. And then during that time I was also a social lecturer, like a university. So doing that as well as doing the PhD.
Were you doing the PhD full time on top of the lecture duties?
I believe so, yeah. So yeah, it would have worked out full time.
Oh wow.
And then I crashed out, so
Yeah. I remember digging through the interviews. I'm sure we'll get to this later as well, as that it was COVID was a big influencer in that, right?
yeah.
Okay. I'm sure we'll cover that in a little bit, so I'll leave that lingering for now. But we'll start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. You've alluded to your disability already, but if you're comfortable saying, how did your disability impact your experience of higher education?
Massively so. Everything from physical stuff like the wheelchair being, I had to use certain broken ramps. I had to use kind of building work ramps to get around the campus. I can't handwrite, so I had to kind of use scribes and things. Exams as well were all scribed for me. A general sense, my voice as well, because my voice can be quite in and out, I would say, cracky as well. That was also an issue around teaching. Um, and I felt the time, I felt like it was my fault. I felt like it was my issue. And looking back now, I think it was more in terms of attitudes in academia are they're quite stigmatized and they can be quite difficult to get around. My background is I'm northern, working class. Just to go to university in my whole family. Nobody else has gone to university before me at that point. I think I was just almost shell shocked by it all. And obviously very impressed as well. Very impressed by everything. I loved education. I adored education. So yeah. I think it was just very like almost in awe of everything that happened there.
It can be intense and it can be formative, and sometimes you don't know until you're on the other side of it how much of an experience, positive or negative, it was.
Yeah. I think with law as well, because law is so intense, it was constantly being like physically exhausted, mentally depleted as well. And kind of not knowing why or how to kind of navigate that because I just thought it was just me. I thought I was the problem massively so. So if any issue came up, it was always like, oh, personally, it's my problem. It's internal to me. It's not their issue. They will just have to. They're being nice to me, so I have to be nice back. I have to be please them almost.
Yeah, we were having this conversation before we started rolling of like I came from second generation from a working class mining town in the Midlands, my mum's side, and there is such the mentality of, oh, okay, this is the situation, but you've kind of just got to get on with it, and there isn't any alternative. And that can become, if it's internalized from such a young age, that really does just carry with you.
I think even now at 34 years old, I'm still dealing with every day of my life, or I'm still like, oh, on some level, I'm like, maybe it is my fault still. It's still there because it's always been there from birth, really.
It can be exhausting when you're having to like mentally challenge yourself on this all the time because there's already the turmoil of things not maybe that having served you as they should, but also you've got to carry, was that your fault? And that having that kind of internalized thing takes so much energy as well.
It does. I think that's kind of what I've learned over the years recently, especially because I didn't know what ableism even was as a word. I had no idea what the language was. I had no idea what was happening to me. I thought it was just me because I had no idea ableism is a word I learned 5 years ago, I think. So before that, there was no other language around it. There was no discussion of it. It was just you're disabled, you're in a wheelchair, you're born this way, but it's on you to fix it.
I'm glad that people are now getting the vocabulary to help because that is, I guess, awareness is part of it. I also think our activism work collectively, just for us and other activists, is probably going a long way as well. But yeah, it's really tough, and like I'm hoping that people like yourself learning the vocabulary that was relatively recent. Hopefully, that's come to more people in that time as well.
hmm I mean, I think looking back now, it's massively, I've seen a change in myself so hugely. And it's just because I'm no longer trying to fix myself or fix my body or my mind because I'm very, very aware that that is still something people want me to do. I'm trying to like push back against that more now. But obviously, I'm still a human being. On the bad days, I'm still thinking, oh, this is my fault still. I have those days.
Yeah, and it's something that can be really hard to escape. I'm gonna just pull it back to university and higher education now, and I'm just wondering, obviously you said that you've grown up with a lot of this internalized ableism towards yourself and a lot of attitudes. What was your experience accessing higher education like and going to uni from that disability standpoint?
It was initially wonderful. I had local education. I did my levels at a local college here in Lancaster, and I adored it, and it was fantastic, and it was initially wonderful. Um, my first day of university, I crashed. My body just crashed. I had a medical emergency. I think that was the first warning sign of actually this is not the right fit for you. But I was so aware that I kind of had to do this thing because that was like I was proving something to the world. I was proving something to the world, and that's not healthy or good, but it is the way that I thought about the world. And I think things like exams, I was going into exams with severe illnesses and still doing them. I think that's a push towards doing them because I felt that people said to me all the time, "You're so smart, you're so intelligent, you're so academic," and I was in some ways. I loved it, but I also think it's so much pressure to put on somebody's body and mind when they're already in a state of vulnerability.
And also, like, I mean, I've never been a wheelchair user. I don't have that lived experience. But one thing I am acutely aware of is how much putting mental energy into stuff can affect your body. Like, for example, if you ever go to a summer school, this is what happened to me. And we'd like focus all day. We'd have this massive lunch, and then we'd leave like 4 hours later, and we would be like hunting for food because we'd use so much energy just thinking. I think it's hard if you haven't experienced it to conceptualize like, oh, you know, I've used all this mental energy. This is really affecting my body as well, and they are tied together.
I think especially with cerebral palsy, where you have these kind of you do get exhaustion quicker and mental exhaustion especially. And I think things like the university, the lift would break down. You'd have to go half of campus again in a circle to get to where you wanted to go because the lift was broken down. Or you would be forced to go up a hill on these like amazing, because Lancaster's got a lot of hills, these amazing hills because there's no lift that's working. Or you'd be sent on a building site to get round to these buildings a different way, or the door would be locked. All of these things happen regularly, daily almost. It was just constantly physically and emotionally draining. I think looking back now, I was so wanting to be there. I think I just forgot everything else and tried to get on with it until I crashed, ominously said.
Yeah, it's an illusion here of some kind. But like I've actually had other wheelchair users where that's been a similar experience before. Actually, in York. And obviously, because we're sworn rivals against Lancaster, boo.
Roses.
Roses are white, how dare you? No. But it was the same experience. This isn't like specific to one university. I've heard multiple times where I've had friends who are wheelchair users that are like, oh yeah, I had to go all the way around the back, and that is exhausting. And again, invisible impacts. The amount of time it takes for someone to go around and try everything and do the extra energy, you can't perform if you're just tired. And I'm not talking about like physically and mentally tired, but also just like it's soul crushing having to go through and fight and fight and fight and fight, and that can take so much from you.
No, I would say about that period of my life, which was 3 years in the end and a bit more because of PhD debacle. I would say that it was the most I've felt disabled. I felt so disabled in those moments. And usually, because I've obviously been younger, I felt it then too. But I feel like that was almost daily of like a constant kind of push forward, push forward, push forward. But every day it was a feeling of like, oh, you're inferior. You don't deserve these extra bits of help. I had one lecturer. I required note taking in a lecture, and she said to me, "No, you cannot have a video of this lecture." I think that would be different. I think then she said, "No, no videos." And I just remember thinking, like, I'm putting my heart and soul into this thing. I'm destroying my body. I'm literally on the edge of something here. And you're telling me no help in that one little thing you could have done, a video. And now I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? Then I was like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, we were having this conversation before we started rolling about how you'd think about these barriers, and looking back, it's like, oh, actually, no, that wasn't me. There's probably more here.
I am sorry, isn't it? And I think there was a massive one when I was lecturing where I worked with somebody and a fellow, we were very young lecturers, associate lecturers. I want to get the right wording there. We were not like lecturers. But we were doing it together. And I said something, and this person working with me said, she means this. And that was the first time I ever thought to myself, actually, that feels really, really off. She means this. I at that point was I had a degree, I had experience, I knew what I was doing. Just have somebody say to me, oh, to a group of people as well, undergraduates, she means this. No. That was the first time I ever thought to myself, actually, they are the ones in the wrong here.
Yeah, and I guess from there it's more of a snowball effect, and you started to realize more things.
Yeah, I think massively so. And I think once you kind of, without having words for it, you feel it every day of your life. But once you acknowledge that and you say to yourself, actually, this feels wrong, that's a different lens of life, isn't it, really? So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's still one that can be equally isolating. It's just because you have the words for it doesn't mean it doesn't suck. And I think that's an important distinction to make as well. Because I think it's sometimes like, oh, you're equipped to deal with this.
No, and I mean, even now, I think sometimes it's more isolating knowing what we know, because we know what it's like. People want to say to us, "Oh, this is not your experience. You're like dramatic. You're being difficult," and it's like, no, we know what we know. That's isolating as well. We know what we know, and you can't unlearn this or unsee these things.
Yeah, you're cursed with the knowledge now. Sorry.
It's been amazing.
We love it. We're obviously talking about obstacles already, but I want to just open the floor to ask if you encountered any other obstacles during your time at uni, or whether you wish to keep to the highlights, because it sounds like there might have been a lot. But did you manage to navigate them, and if so, how?
So I think there's so many different situations where I felt I had to give more, and I was already on the edge of difficulty. I remember once I think it was second year of university, where I asked for an extension, which I never did before in my life. I was always very, very, very good with the deadlines, for detriment. But I asked for an extension, and I had to go. I was living off campus, and they said to me, "You have to come onto campus. You have to deliver it by hand. You have to wait with it for an hour." And with talking, I was in such a bad way. There was no way that was. I had to get a bus and going to out in public, and that was a massive thing at that point. I was just like so anxious as well, and I remember thinking like that's fine, but now I'm like horrified by that because I was so vulnerable, and there were so many ways we could have done that particular thing without that whole situation unfolding.
And I think it's just normalized. Like, oh, okay, no, we do have to go and submit and get the bus here. And it's not until you look at the alternatives like, oh, wait, that would have been really implementable back then.
I think, like I say, it's because I was so unwell as well. I think if I could go back now and say to them, a better case for it would have been just let me post it or something. Just let me do something else. Give me another way of doing things because I was already so in such a difficult spot with the disability with cerebral palsy. It can be so difficult to manage. I was already vulnerable in that situation.
Yeah. And that's hard to navigate, especially if you're in. I'm guessing at uni, especially when you first joined, was kind of like this new and intense situation, and you have to manage your condition under completely new parameters.
I mean, this is the thing as well. I was with my parents for the first time. My parents used to like make me drink water, make me eat food. Because I was such academically my dream was to go to university. My dream was to go to university. That was my ultimate goal in life, which is bizarre now. Like, God's sake, Melissa. But that was my dream. So to get there, I was just like, I need to push myself so hard and be great at this and be a lawyer. Not now, Christ, not now. But that is that is a dream. I was really driven to that dream stuff, and I think looking back now, it was such a focus of mine that there was no way, no physio, no exercise, eating terribly, Greggs mostly, on campus, and just drinking no water again. And I think quite a picture of me post graduation at university, I looked so unwell because I was constantly just pushing myself, pushing myself, pushing myself. And I looked so unwell. And even though I was in a wheelchair, the guy said to me, stand up for your picture. I did, which was so inappropriate and so wrong. And I was just like, okay, of course I'll stand up for a picture. And I looked so unwell and so wary. They sorts of sad pictures we can see now where I'm just like, that happened to me. That moment of time was so terrible.
That was, I think, one of the Metro articles I read from you.
Oh, that was another one. Yeah, the difference. I think that was one where the lady said to me, she's handicapped. I've had all sorts of different words for it. The language that's been used against me as well has been so extreme. The S word, I don't never say the S word. That happened as well. But it's that kind of thing of like, can you do this? Why not? And it's the thing of like, of course, at that age, I was thinking, this is my fault. This is my problem. I have to fix it.
And I also, if you were younger, I feel like this is a conversation I've had on the show many times and that I've had with other guests many times, but you forget how to rest because you're so set on a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're like, oh no, I'm resting, my rest has involved me thinking all day about the work I've not been doing, but I've actually just been lying down and staring at the ceiling or doom scrolling. And it's like, that's not actually rest. But especially when you're managing a health condition, that compounds massively.
That was constant. I think because I'm doing a law degree, especially, it's so intense, it's so extreme. The amount of work to be done is so extreme. I'm a natural overthinker, so even just recently, I was on bed rest for the last 5 weeks, and I was still thinking in my mind, how can I get back to work? How can I do this work? How can I do this thing? And it is miserable. It's absolutely miserable. It's just like, well, calm down and rest. You make yourself worse, wind yourself up. And I was still like, no, I can still work. And I was still unwell, but I was still trying. I think that's kind of, it's still an issue now, but back then it was so much worse.
And I guess now it's something you can address. Whereas in uni, I have this conversation loads. I feel like academia is built on a neurodivergent ideal where everyone's just hyper focused on their work and like has this massive output. Because we didn't have words for neurodiversity back in the day, but we had words for geniuses who, live and breathe their work.
You know what I think set me on the wrong path entirely was being told I was so smart. Because I was straight A, B, A student, and I think I was told, do a law degree because otherwise you're wasting your talent. And I think if I'd been told differently, I would have acted differently. And not to be arrogant, but it was just like a feeling of like, well, I've got to prove myself constantly. I've got to prove myself. And this event as well, shamefully, having a brain injury. Also, I just always thought I need to prove that I'm not. that way. Or that's not ableist. I know it's ableist hell. I'm ashamed of it now. Back then, I thought that was just a way to prove that I wasn't, you know, injured in that way. And I'm so ashamed of it now.
No, but it's part of growth, isn't it? Is that we all come from different places and we do our best to learn and grow, and that's part of the process. Especially in, I mean, a lot of this vocabulary wasn't really mainstream until recently in the spaces. So we like a lot of people didn't even have it. We knew roughly what should be right, but then applying principles to yourself is so much harder than seeing them in others, like massively, because you got to fight your own internalized stigma and internalized ableism. And B, it's just, again, it's just so much to do. And it's at some point, if you're already facing so much friction in your life, it's easier to have these problems and not have the friction of challenging them, I guess, because you've got so much else you need to do. And then it's not until many years later when you have the vocabulary and you have the time to process it and you're like, oh wow, that actually was a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away from these last few years is the sense that I can see where I was killing myself almost. I can see looking back now where I was absolutely destroying my body and my mind, and I was that picture of me on graduation day. To me, that is the moment where I should have been thinking, that is not right, that's not okay, and I wasn't. But I think looking back now, I can at least say I can see where the different situations unfolded the way they were wrong.
I'll link the article, which I think has both the story about the woman that you mentioned and also that graduation photo. I'll link that.
Let me just say that picture of my hair was just.
You had really long hair back then, I think. So for a quick visual, Melissa has very short hair nowadays, kind of in a medium length pixie, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I had a breakup years and years ago and dyed my hair from natural blonde to like that colour, that brown colour. Red colour, and yeah, so that hair is my actual. I cringe so much about that hair.
Character development and growth. It applies to everything. I mean, the thing is, if you look back and you're not cringing, it probably means you haven't grown. So in a way, the cringe is good, I guess.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's what we'll say to ourselves, because there's definitely like I get my Google Photos memories and it's like, ooh, oh dear. But
Oh well,
we grow. It's okay.
I wish I'd like literally just blended a bit more of my makeup. That would have been grand, but that's fine. We got through it.
To be fair, for my first graduation, I like had my makeup and I bought a dress and it was lovely. For my second graduation, I had like the same makeup I've been using for like a year. Well, it's Oxford, so you have to wear like to have pretty strict dress requirements. But I was also just wearing the same suit I've owned for 3 years, like whack on a bow tie and go, to get the big gown from college. Like the standards did really slip. Yeah, it's time. But there is something that we've been alluding to here. Obviously, in the intro, I said you're a freelance journalist, but we mainly been talking about you studying law and being an associate lecturer while also doing a PhD. And I mentioned very briefly towards the top of the show that you moved to freelance journalism around COVID time. And I was wondering, because you're not doing academia anymore, what led you to leave academia in favour of freelance journalism?
The PhD just kind of fell apart as an idea, and I mean, I had not the best support. I remember sitting in a room with these two people who were supervising my PhD, and they were saying, start from scratch or do more. And I remember thinking, I'm doing the most. I'm doing everything I can here. I'm in this like white walled grey building, and I'm giving my soul to this thing, and I'm trying my best. And all my colleagues have like careers of papers of all these published things, and I have done nothing in that regard, and I still felt a failure. And it wasn't failure, it felt like a failure because it wasn't failure. But looking back now, I was so at that point unwell. I should have been hospitalised even. I think I was that point, I was so drained of everything and I couldn't think of anything to do better. And I was so weakened by it and just honestly destroyed mentally and emotionally as well. Because it's my dreams since I was very young. I just thought that's such a failure. But looking back now, I think it was a sign of my cerebral politics just having control completely.
Yeah.
and I've been unable to do anything because I had no grip on it, basically.
Yeah, and also, so I do actually know some people from uni who have cerebral palsy, especially. I'm thinking of my fantastic rowing coach at Jesus College, Oxford, who Florence is amazing. But for as briefly as I rowed, which might have been a term, but I also feel like representation for cerebral palsy, there isn't much in the way of representation at universities or higher education, just because it's a less common condition, especially when you look at general neurodiversity, ADHD, and autism. Do you find that it affected support?
I would also say, I want to make it very clear, my parents were both very anti-research, anti kind of knowing cerebral palsy was.
Ooh.
So you have to remember that I hadn't, even now we're learning stuff. My parents refuse to acknowledge some of these things, refuse to acknowledge the kind of health benefits or health kind of problems I have, refuse to acknowledge kind of like what I've been through in terms of like mental and physical struggles. So yeah, no, even now there's a complete reluctance on both my dad's side, unfortunately. My mum refuses to acknowledge either her part in it, which was to me just to be ignorant, willfully,
Yeah.
or to even research it on a basic level, to even Google it, which is bizarre, isn't it? But I think it shows why I am the way that I am in that sense, because I didn't know better. I had no idea. I had no idea what cerebral palsy was in a lot of ways, what it could do to me in a lot of ways. I was raised to just get on with it. No, don't ever think about it. Just don't think about it. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't ever hurt you. Even though I was obviously in a lot of pain with it, and I'm now. It was just don't do it. For context, now I've been unwell recently because of my dehydration. Dehydration is something to some people with cerebral palsy do struggle with it, and I wasn't taught that. I was just taught, "You're fine, get on with it. Nothing wrong with you." Which in its way, in a very basic way, is nice, but in a lot of ways, let's be honest, is not going to work in the real world.
No, it's very like sweep things under the rug kind of thing.
I think that the family does that.
Yeah, and I guess in a way, like, it didn't serve because you were meeting all these goals as well. Kind of, I guess you were doing it in spite of yourself or despite yourself. You were the first to go to university, you were starting a PhD, and I guess that.
I also skipped masters, which I think was a mistake, but I skipped masters because I was told I could. So again, mistake.
Yeah, it depends on the person. For some people that really works, but for others, like, don't do it. But again, you were meeting all these goals. I guess it was hard to see, like, I'm sure there were struggles, but because you were hitting the educational milestones that you wanted to hit, it was easier to kind of be like, oh, this is fine.
I think also explained by the fact that even from being very small, for some reason, God only knows why, of my siblings, I was the smart one. So it was like, it was always set up to be like, to me, looking back now, a massive failure, because that was always going to happen, where I was always going to feel so much pressure. And then in the end, it was going to fail because I had no knowledge of cerebral palsy in that way. I didn't know what it could do to me. I didn't know why I was hitting these walls. I was throughout my life.
Did you go to uni and find that they could deliver support, or were they also struggling? Had they accommodated much with cerebral palsy in the past?
I think it's a mix of things. I think the law department tried. I think because I was such not an easygoing, I'm definitely type A for goodness sake, but because I was such like an accommodator in my own head, that I was just like, again, looking back, I would say now, I would be like, I need this, I need this, I need this. Back then, I would always just be grateful. That's the one word I would always use, grateful. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for your support. You're so nice to me. I'm so grateful. I think I'm a lot less grateful now.
Yeah, and also gratefulness, at least in my own experience, only gets you so far when there's just a bunch of like systematic failures. It's like the people are really nice, but the system still sucks. And it's like, oh, how do we reconcile that? So from what I understand, when you moved to journalism, you kind of, I'm paraphrasing from a podcast I saw. I hope in my rigorous journalistic research.
That's not creepy at all.
No, it's all I could find. I was like, oh my goodness, like, you're a bit of a social media ghost. I was like, how am I going to make these questions? Like, I went digging.
I am. On purpose, though.
That's fair.
I enjoy it.
This is my free journalism training. But it was kind of like you said this is based on a show where you'd won a journalism award for opinion, where you kind of were doing criminal law and there wasn't really anyone, like everything kind of died down because COVID, everything was kind of reaching tipping point as well. And you said you were basically just sat at a table with not much to do and just started submitting, I think, to Scope. I'm really digging out the back of my brain here. I've only seen this video once.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, that was a long time ago for me as well. I think there was a year when I did a job search because don't forget, I had always planned to do academia and be in academia for a long time. And one day, after that day sitting down, I was just like, I hate this. I actually do hate this, which is bizarre as well because I was literally having some kind of emotional epiphany, breakdown, who knows. But I remember thinking, I have to get out of this room. And then I also, at the same time, had some kind of medication I was taking for cerebral palsy, which improved things a lot. So I think it's a lot of things coming together to be like, actually, you need to leave the space. And then there was a job search, and then COVID hit, and I was fielding full time because of obviously medical reasons. It was just like, well, what do I do now? There is nothing else I can do. I need to do something. And it was literally 4 walls and a bowling ball for some reason. Just a bowling ball that I had just like Wilson from Castaway.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of the show, and yeah, no, Castaway, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a really weird time in everybody's life, but my life specifically, because I had all of these dreams, ambitions. I wanted to do these things, but it wasn't for me. And then obviously a job search, and then COVID hit, and I just had nothing else. I had nothing else to do. It was literally just 4 walls. Occasionally, I would see a person, very occasionally. But yeah, it's a weird time in my life, and I just remember sitting down at the table and thinking, pitch, or what is a pitch? How do I get into journalism? Because why not? At that point, it was just like, why not? And then I volunteered for charity, and the charity's incredible. Charity House Trust, and through that, I vaguely know of I can't remember his name. Doctor Who writer and showrunner, recent one.
RTD, Rusty Davis?
Yes.
Yes.
I knew of him working for charity. I asked him through the charity for a quote for an article. Very cheeky. And then from there, I think I wrote that one for Scope. And then from there, it was just, yeah, more and more. And I adore it. But yeah, that was just the one thing I did. I was like, and could I just get a quick quote from RTD, please? I was a Doctor Who fan as well. I was just like, please. Yeah, that happened. It's the way life works sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of an interesting time to be a Doctor Who fan, but we won't go into that now.
I don't, yeah. I don't know words.
It's a conversation for another time. Mind you, I was talking before the show about Good Omens, which I enjoyed for a very long time before everything happened with Neil Gaiman, and we were just like, oh. It's a big groan for modern media.
We lose a lot of stuff we love through just like living this life.
Yeah, I gained a lot of joy from watching David Tennant on Have I Got News for You recently.
Oh, yeah.
And that, yeah, I think for both like Doctor Who fans and Good Omens fans, it's brought me a lot of solace.
Yeah, I'm a massive Nine fan. Who's Christopher Eccleston, which my doctor from when I was very young, but 15, 16. So yeah, that was my doctor.
Yeah, I was younger, but because Christopher Eccleston was the first one coming out of the revival, for a pretty large swathe of the population, that is gonna be their doctor. I think I was growing up as David Tennant came in, so I probably remember more of him, but Christopher Eccleston was my first doctor.
You know, I had in my room at university, I had a poster of Matt Smith on my wall of my bed.
Oh,
I had a Matt Smith poster above my bed, and I don't know, to this day I'm still not like, that feels wrong in some way, but yeah, it was just that there, so it was great.
it felt right at the time. We learn and we grow. Right, let's get back on these questions, and we'll just keep chatting about media forever, which is lovely, but not the point of my podcast. And I have to try and keep myself on topic. Now, this next question is always a bit of a tricky one to address, but feel free to answer it however you may please. No is a very valid answer. Have you experienced any instances of your disability proving helpful in a higher education setting?
No.
No, that's fair.
No, I can't think of a single one. Not even just say, not at all.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single one.
No, it's so fair.
I suppose even back then I was unaware of other people who were disabled being undergraduates specifically. So I can't even say camaraderie because we had none on the time I'm aware. Maybe just me on my own, who knows? But
I always ask this question because A, I always get responses I don't anticipate. But B, a lot of my guests and myself are neurodivergent, and you find that they're like, oh, hyperfocus is amazing, and this is this, and it's like, I don't want to build the show on a deficit system.
I suppose I would say, in that sense of planning, because I plan my life so meticulously and carefully because of my disability, I think maybe that helps, but equally that could be not to be true. Sorry, I've got no.
No, it's very fair. Like I'm always surprised when I have friends who have health conditions that aren't neurodivergent, like general neurodivergence, and they're like, oh yeah, I can hyperfocus, I can do this, or I have a really good routine for me, and it's like that's great. And then I have friends, my friend Tom's type 1 diabetic, for example, and I was like, how do I ask this question? Or friends with, say, just fatigue or long COVID especially, and it's like it's so hard to reconcile with this question, but sometimes I get answers I'm not expecting and I keep it in for that. But no is such a valid answer.
I think, the sense of like, I'm so proud to be disabled, I'm so proud of what it gives to me in certain ways,
Yeah.
but not for this purpose.
Yeah, that's very fair. Like, and it also, if it adds extra barriers, and sometimes that's just how it is, and that's fine. But you alluded there to the community and the activism work, and I want to ask more about that because I knew about Hands Off Our Handles before you messaged me about coming on the show. Yeah, I think you'd like some of my posts, or I saw something, I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm endlessly curious about this subject. I find it fascinating looking back now on what I have experienced. I'm fascinated by people who are disabled in academia now because it is such almost like a new world, isn't it? Because I had no idea it was going on, almost.
I mean, I think you might like to know this. The website literally launched this morning at about 5 a.m. because my body clock doesn't exist. But it is now out, and I'll link it in this episode description instead of the link tree. That'll be new pride of place. So if you want something to check out this afternoon, I can send you the link. I will. I'll do it after this. I'll pop it in the chat. But you founded Hands Off Our Handles, which is a fantastic initiative that is focused on stopping people from grabbing wheelchair users without their consent. Unfortunately, I know, again, from reading your articles and kind of having an idea of the general experience of a wheelchair user, that does come from lived experience, which is not very nice, of being pushed to people you don't know and without consent. It does come from a place of hurt, unfortunately. But maybe I've already alluded to it, but what motivated you to set up Hands Off Our Handles?
So even at university, and prior to university, I obviously was being groped and assaulted in this way and pushed without my consent. Going to university on campus, I found it happened more there, and that was the situation as it was. And then I kind of thought it was just me again because I didn't have any context to what was happening in the world around being disabled. And then I wrote an article for Metro about the subject for me, my perspective, and I ended up getting lots of messages overnight, just being like, "This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me." And then from there, I literally was on Canva free, just like, well, we can do something with this. We can do something with this. And I was honestly just exhausted, and my eyes were stinging. I was so tired. So I ended up just doing that post, the famous post now, I feel, the yellow and black one, which was all words used by people to explain what happened to them. So every single word that was highlighted in that kind of graphic, which is now famous, I feel, kind of was their words. And I think that was really important, and I think it's valuable. And I think it was because it's our own words. So important. I just went from there, really. And continues to grow, really.
Yeah, if you put me a link to that, I'll put it in the Show description. Because I know of it. I don't know if I've seen the post, but I definitely know the movement.
Yeah, no, the post is just that was literally done in 10 minutes. I remember the moment of just being like, my eyes was stinging, like I had a headache because I was so tired, and I was just like, well, this is the plan. This is the plan. So it's my pajamas, just like on camera through. It comes up now in like weird situations of people on people's social media. And I'm like, oh, that's mine. I did that like ages ago. Remember when you like had your moment of like just like panic graphic design?
It's my passion. So you obviously spoke about this being a problem in higher education, and it's something that in my like activism in particular, I've not heard about happening in a campus environment, probably because I've never asked about it. Let's be honest. It's probably not because it isn't happening. But do you think that people like being assaulted in their wheelchairs, being pushed without consent, do you feel like that is discussed enough in the sector right now?
No, I don't think it's good enough anywhere. I actually would like to go back to a certain situation I was in at one point where I was a drinker during university, especially that Freshers Week. I was a bit drinker, and I was told people in wheelchairs don't drink. There was a free bus town. The damn bus was still like hungry. The bus had no spaces for wheelchairs because wheelchairs usually don't drink. But I think that sets up the rest of it because we're told we don't drink, even though we do. So it's unsafe because we're told we don't have the same kind of education around drinking and like partying and all the rest of it. Luckily for me, I had good friends, male friends, female friends, who were helping me a lot during that time period. I felt very safe with them, even from back from high school as well, college. So I felt safe, but I feel like there was no education around kind of what the differences are when you're disabled, because you are more vulnerable in a wheelchair. I'm quite small for my age and stuff. So looking back now, it's kind of wild to think that we were told, you don't drink, it's fine. Don't go anywhere, it's fine. And even I have to tell you a story because it's even now. Um,
Go for it.
we had I had a few drinks and the lift came down and somebody had like peed in the lift. And I was told it's fine, it's just water, but it wasn't just water.
Oh,
And I was just like, this feels like the best example ever of like what I go through. Where I'm just like, no, it's not water. And they're like, it's water. It wasn't water. So yeah, it's just like that kind of thing of like that very graphic thing of like, actually, this is what we go through. We're told things aren't true when they are true.
if you don't mind me asking, was that with a power chair or were you having to like manually propel that chair with the wheel on the wheels?
Oh mate, full manual.
Oh,
But also, I went to it. I used to go to this bar all the time regularly. I was a regular there, and it had the most disgusting floors ever. I was caught with like black bits on my hands, like black tar on my hands, because the floors were so bad. And I loved it, but I was like, literally, what were you doing?
you're smuggling hand sanitizer in.
I was just unbothered. I was just like, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one way to build the immune system.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, I can't even believe I was like so young once. Who knew? Who knows?
I think we need to go for a drink together sometime. I think that's what I'm hearing. We'll do the activism one, and we'll just keep descending into like.
I miss fish bowls. I used to sit with a fish bowl money instead of just the wheelchair. It was great.
Oh, that sounds like. Yeah, to be fair, I think wheelchair use on night out would be great because like you can carry more. I take it like there's big perks logistically.
There are definitely perks. I think the floors aren't perks, but yeah, in
Yeah,
general, it's a lot of like perks. I used to find shot glasses in my wheelchair afterwards, like after a night out. I'd find shot glasses on each side of my wheelchair, but I stole that technically. Who knew?
whoops.
Especially when because I went to college later because of my surgeries.
Yeah,
So I was like 18, but I used to go to A levels classes and be like, oh, it's a shot glass in my wheelchair. It's fine. I'm 18. It's fine. But yeah, no, it was just like the time.
yeah.
I was young once, who knows? That's wild to me.
Surprise acquisitions. Well, we've got a few final questions here. We'll move it to relatively rapid fire. I'm keep peering over. I have a cushion for audio dampening, and I keep looking at the time every so often. And I'm like, oh no, I've done this to myself. But to be fair, these are actually pretty quick questions. These last three, and I think they're quick and easy, but they're also quite powerful ones. I hope to ask. I hope I've designed these correctly. But obviously, you're doing hands off our handles, and you speak about disability a lot in your journalism work, and I was wondering what your opinions are on how we can be a better ally to the disabled community, specifically wheelchair users.
Stop touching us. Stop telling us what we know is right is wrong. I think the worst thing I've gone through is being told with my health, like dehydration, with all of these different things, with the wheelchair, with just in life, is just being told I'm being dramatic or I'm not understanding it or it's not their fault. It's just the situation of just being like, I'm telling you what is wrong. Believe me, but or at least do not gaslight me into thinking something else is like the truth. Because ultimately, I personally think that's what damaged me for so many decades of my life is being told I was just wrong. And even now I'm still like, maybe I'm wrong, who knows?
It does, it runs deeper than people think. If in doubt, ask, I think, is the main thing as well. Is that if you're really not sure, or wait for someone to come to you if they need help. And I think knowing those boundaries and communication boundaries are so important.
Yeah, I would never say don't offer help. I think that's a great thing to do. But if we say no, it's a no
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah. Like I think that there's some kind of, I'm gonna call it quote unquote politeness that's very deep rooted, where it's like, oh, if you say no, like maybe it's still helpful to do this. It's like no, it's a no, especially with you're moving because it is an extension of your body.
It really is, and I think people don't understand that a wheelchair is part of who I am. If it breaks down, for example, I can't move, so that's part of who I am. People don't really recognize that enough.
Yeah. But I also want to talk because we've spoken a lot about your own internal attitudes. And I get a very strong feeling, I'm sure you have this feeling as well, that you're not the only one who's living with these internalized ableism towards yourself, essentially. And I was wondering, because I know it's something you've had to live with for a long time, what advice would you give to people living with internalized ableism about themselves and their disability or their neurodivergence?
I think listen to yourself. I think there's a situation now where we talk to be constantly positive, and there's going to be bad days. It's going to be terrible sometimes. It's going to take the mick. I want to swear. It's going to have days where you're going to be so annoyed and so angry, and that's fine. I think we have such an attitude now of just like just let it, whatever you feel is valid to you, and nobody can tell you how to deal with situations. There's no manual for this. I wish there was. I think it'd make my life a lot easier. But there's no manual for this, and there's no way to grow up the way that I grew up, which was just being told ignore it. Was so unhealthy and so toxic and so counterproductive. So yes, just whatever it means to you, however you feel, that is so valid.
Have you? I haven't had the chance to read it yet. Have you read Unlearning Ableism? I know that came out a few months ago.
No, I don't think I've read that one.
It's on my TBR. I've heard people recommend that for the same thing, but I don't know if it's the same as a manual. It's the kind of thing you'd have to know about in order to read. I feel like, but no, there's some stuff coming out.
I think it's a fascinating thing of like, if I had been told certain things about my condition a lot earlier, I would be in a lot better place to deal with these things. Like I say, I can look back now and think, I was gonna hit a wall there, I was gonna hit a wall there, I was gonna hit a wall there. But I had no idea. I could not see that coming at all because I had no awareness of what the wall looked like or was. So yes. And I don't even think I think the worst part of it for me was always that I blamed myself so deeply that I had no idea what was happening. So it was my fault because I if I'd known that it was almost inevitable, then I would have calmed down. But because I thought it was my fault, it made it 100 times worse. Probably made my recovery a lot worse as well.
Yeah, because it's all good having the view of the social model, but if you can't internalize it, then you're gonna live your life looking for deficits.
And also, social model, what the hell is that? That 5 years ago, I had no idea what the hell. The language wasn't there at all, but also the concept of it, the idea of it, my blood on my bones wasn't there. I had no concept of any of this. So it's like it's great to have language, but also the actual feeling of it wasn't there in terms of like, oh, this is unjust, this is wrong. You know, the emotion of people were hurting me was there definitely, but the sense that this was unjust or this was their fault or this was society's fault, that wasn't there. It was all on me.
And because society is so large, it can still feel that way, but that's what we're fighting. And I think on that note, I'm going to bring us to the last question, which is, we've covered a lot today, from tangents about Doctor Who's to actually internalized ableism and hands off our handles and changing careers. And there's a lot, Melissa, it was a lot. But it was a very valuable discussion. I'm so glad we had it, and I've had you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. But I was wondering, if we were to consolidate everything that we've been speaking about today, what is one key takeaway that you would like listeners to remember from your story?
I think don't blame yourself. If you're raised in a society where you're told you are in some way wrong, or you're kind of, your body is wrong, your mind is wrong, don't blame yourself for having these problems. Don't blame yourself for being able to look back and say, oh, that was my fault. It was never your fault. It was just the way society was built, and you were not given the right tools for it. And I think a lot of my current issues, but also past issues, have been that immediately when I was told, or when I experienced something that was wrong, I was like, that's my fault. That was entirely on me. And nothing anybody could say or do would change that. But also, I was raised that way. It began so young with me. So just think, you know what I mean? It's just this sense of just whatever else you take away from it, just don't blame yourself for thinking these things as well, because I feel shame about my past as well. But I feel like it was almost going to happen because that's how it was set up very young.
Yeah, and also one thing that I'm getting from this conversation is probably fight the norms that the next generation are going to be raised into, because if you don't know, you don't have the right words to describe what's going on in your life. If you have the energy, like, never push it further, but being able to make sure that people are equipped.
That's my biggest thing. If one person can say, don't touch my wheelchair because it's my wheelchair, or can say this symptom of cerebral palsy in particular is bad and not my fault, it's medically just there, then that's great, because I was never taught that cerebral palsy was really a big deal, to be honest with you. I couldn't walk. That was all I was told in a lot of ways. I couldn't sit up on my own. That was all I was told. I was never told about kind of like fight or flight, or kind of spasms, or kind of, when you jump randomly, which is really annoying, or voice stuff. My voice, again, I was told my voice was because I was excitable. It was never medical. It was always just emotions, which we can't have anyway.
Yeah, obviously we are drink.
It's that sense of like being northern, and like, you know what I mean? It's that sense of like anything that was knowledge around being disabled was just, don't discuss it. Or if you do discuss it, be nice about it. Don't be too much. Don't be a drama queen.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I'm still learning about cerebral palsy now. I'm reading books now about cerebral palsy, learning about my own body, for goodness sake. I just learned about water, for goodness. I just learned about water, for goodness sake. Like, you know what I mean? If I'd been told that younger, and I think my parents, I'm going to say, I'll be honest with you, to blame for that, because they chose ignorance. They chose willful ignorance. There were books they were given that they did not read. And I can't forgive them for that in a lot of ways. It sounds horrible, but it's true. I think that's also honest and important to say. It's just the way things are. And I think I have to kind of learn now almost.
Disability is a human experience. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
My family.
Humans have human experiences. Whoa!
And emotions. Who knew? Emotions were just like, do not have them. How dare you have them?
Go to your books.
Just, have a drink. Just calm down. It's fine. As much as I don't want to be so journalistic, I think northern working class families, because we are taught to be a certain way and to live a certain way, it's like, well, what the hell are you then? Well, what do we do with you?
I think we might actually speak about that for a bit after we hit stop, but for now we're at time, so I'm just going to close the show if that's okay. HE Enabled is a show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in UK higher education. As I alluded to in this episode, the website's now out. That is linked in the episode description, hopefully in the show description as well. That will have your Patreon links, your Ko-Fis, all of the social medias. All of the information, if you want to be on the show, all of the onboarding information is now also on that webpage, as well as a contact form. So it is much easier for you to get in touch with me. Please, if you want to be a guest, come on the show. If you want to support on Patreon, it's £1. Please come and support. It goes a long way. But for now, I think it is time to close up. So Melissa, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.